Ambassador, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. One of President Putin's most powerful supporters, the head of the Wagner group, Mr. Prigozhin, he said this week from the front line, we are in such a condition that we could lose Russia. It looks like you are losing this war, doesn't it?
Are we? Really? I heard different statements by Mr. Prigozhin. He is a free man, he is a free person, he is commenting on what is happening in Bakhmut or Artyomovsk, how the battle has gone. But actually, I don't think that he is very much wrong, because the threat that existed for us on the eve of the military operation or special military operation that has started in Ukraine was really the danger that very serious danger presented to the existence of our state.
There was no threat to you before the invasion of Ukraine. It's very well documented that the claims that Russia repeatedly circulated were false. Those are baseless claims. There was no widespread evidence of that.
You do not say the word false or lie or something like that, because this is not true. Ukraine has assembled an army which is 2.5 bigger than in Poland, although the population is comparable. That was before the start of the operation. 250 people, and it was standing on the border of Russia. It has built fortresses just along the borders of Donbass over the year. It has finished its, with the help of Western assistance, it has finished its refurbishment of army and navy, and it was prepared to finalize the air force as well. So it was quite capable, a very capable army, which was, the target was Russia. And when we have heard about the nuclear weapon, possible acquisition of nuclear weapon by Ukraine, that was a real threat. Inclusion into NATO, that was the red line for us.
Ambassador, there is no concrete evidence that those claims are true. And on the contrary, many people have dismissed those claims as being ridiculous, as being unfounded, as being propaganda. And I'm asking you this afternoon about what is happening in this conflict right now. Mr. Prigozhin, one of Putin's staunchest allies, suggested there is a risk of losing Russia because of what is happening right now. Do you disagree?
Not anymore. I do not support this statement, which probably is taken out of context. I'm not sure about, I haven't heard him saying this or commenting it that way. And I do believe that we have prevented already anything like that by action.
There are, though, now unthinkable things happening if you go back a few months. There are armed groups loyal to Kiev who have crossed your border and even temporarily been able to take some territory. Isn't that a humiliation for a country like Russia?
No, you know that these, we do not count these people, nationalists, two nationalist group who were playing on the side of Ukraine that has gone into Russia, and in fact they were terrorists, huge terrorists. Just terrorists, because they were shooting civilians, damaging about 200 houses, like that, damaging cars and all of that. So the target were civilians. But they have done it with support of our Ukrainian army, who was shelling houses from the other side of the border. And moreover, I will say that they have used American equipment, American blinded cars, and other American equipment. And moreover, I will say, just a second, I have to finish because it's important. And if you will look into Wall Street article dated of 18th of May, it is said that the British special forces have been training Ukrainians and assisting them and guiding them into the acts of sabotage against civilians in Russia. So that was written by, not by us, by Wall Street Journal.
But again, Ambassador, you are repeating claims which are hotly disputed, which in many cases are baseless. And whatever you say this afternoon, this conflict was, you claimed to start with, to protect Russia's border. And whoever these people are now, they have crossed your border. Is it not time to accept that this conflict, this war, which I know you describe as a special military operation, but this war has been a disaster for your country?
we have done what we have to do, in fact, and we do not consider these people as something special. This is a covert operation that has been done. It is second covert operation that has been done by some nationalists, but with time going on, we will manage to do this, that it will never repeat. So far, probably, we were not so prudent enough, and our armed forces were not prepared for this, but believe me, next time it's not going to happen.
But there is widespread concern in Russia, as well as the criticisms from the leader of the Wagner group, that there have been terrible problems among your forces, not enough ammunition, not enough training, troops woefully underprepared. And the mothers of soldiers have been expressing anger and concern about their sons being sent into a conflict with no preparation, a conflict which has lost huge numbers of Russians' lives, as well as in Ukraine. I know you're a father. Would you be happy for your sons to go and fight in this conflict?
Well, you know, there is a famous say by Winston Churchill, when the war starts, the first to sacrifice is the truth. So we have two different narratives with you.
This is not a narrative, these are the facts, Ambassador.
No, it is.
Mothers in Russia have been protesting about
Laura,
their sons being sent into this conflict.
You know, it is, for me, my country is much more familiar to me, and I have been twice during last year in Russia, and I will be next week as well. So I can tell you that what you are reading in your newspapers, it is quite opposite what is being done in our society. So there are two things, parallel truths are going around.
There are mothers in Russia who have been protesting in the streets or trying to protest against what they see as the death toll has mounted. So let's ask about something different. You say you have a different version.
Right, but please, we have two different narratives with you. And if you will try to convince me that your narrative is right, so I do believe that it is wrong.
This is not about narratives. This is about the truth. Can you tell us how many Russian lives have been lost in this conflict?
No, well, there is an official, one can only trust official statements by that. Official statements that there was a chief of Wagner, what Prigozhin has stated, how many troops has been lost on the Ukrainian side during the take of Artyomovsk, Bakhmut, the same, and how many losses were on our side. So he knows the ciphers.
And do you know that number? Documents from the FSB in Russia suggest there have been well over 100,000 casualties. It is
just taken from this ceiling, it is from these documents. Prigozhin has said that during the Battle of Artyomovsk, 57, on Ukrainian side, 57 died, 85 wounded,000. On the Russian side, 20 died, perished during this war.
Overall, the FSB documents suggest there might have been more than 40,000 deaths of Russians. Do you deny that?
I have never seen this document and I never heard about them. If you know about FSB documents or you have read it, you are much more informed than me.
But do you deny that number?
I simply neither deny nor confirm because I do not know. It is only official figures provided by the Ministry of Defense will be certain on that. On that side, Ukrainian side does not provide any official figures, by the way. It is just taken by the journalist, multiplied by something, and really it doesn't work to discuss.
It isn't extraordinary that you can't tell us how many Russians lost their lives, and isn't the truth that Russia will not be honest about how many of their own soldiers have lost their lives because they don't want to be honest with the Russian population about how many young men have been killed?
I think it is much less than you think, because what is on the forefront, it is professionals. And what is in the rear and logistic and supporting, these are those conscripts that has been conscripted during last campaign. But if you have seen that who is in the battle right now, so this is mainly and mostly, this is professionals by private army of Prigozhin, and others are making supporting. So it is not that bad as you are trying to portray it.
I'm merely asking you to confirm or deny figures from the FSB. Those documents have been leaked, but I'm hearing that you are not confirming or denying that.
I have not seen these figures, and I'm not aware about the origin of it. And I do believe that FSB documentation is not so available to any journalists.
But why hide those figures from your own population?
I have no reason to say why it is. No one is hiding figures, because I do believe that because action it is still going on, and I have never heard that British government is revealing something about the losses in the course of action.
Well, actually, during the war in Afghanistan, the British government did regularly report on deaths, but that's not what we are here to talk about this afternoon.
Afghanistan lasted for 10 years.
Let's talk about how the war has been conducted. In the last few hours, there has been an attack on a hospital in Dnipro. It has killed civilians. Our colleagues at BBC Verify have checked. A missile has fallen onto the hospital. Civilians have died. A 6-year-old and a 3-year-old boy are among those who have been hurt. How can you justify an attack like that on civilians, on a hospital?
The problem is that the shooting is going on for 9 years. And every day shooting is going on Lugansk, Donetsk, and all of that. The day before yesterday, kindergarten was destroyed. The day before that, a bus with civilian persons was totally burned by HIMARS, American weapons. But nothing is in your press about that. So if you should be unbiased, then you should reflect the two-side impressions.
I am asking you about what is happening on the ground and what Russian forces are saying. And it is clear from what has been happening, it is obvious to the world. The United Nations, which is an organization of which Russia is a member, reported in March having taken extensive evidence that Russia had committed willful killings, rape, torture, the transfer and deportation of children. Now, how can you justify those acts? Even war has rules, Ambassador.
About deportation for children, I think that we have dealt with this already in the United Nations. And
do you deny that it happened? That thousands of children have been deported from Ukraine?
If you are interested in my answer, then I will continue a bit on that side, because it is, in fact, it is an important question. A lot of families has been taken from the areas which is close to the front line, and it was sent to different places. About, if I'm not mistaken, about 3,000 children has been taken from nearby the front line. Those who has no parents, who belong to the care houses, who are inside the care houses, and just have no one to care about them. About 3,000. Okay, out of this 3,000, about 200 to 2,600 has returned back because they have found families, care houses, and that. Only something around 400 children, which have no parents and whose home were very close to front line, they were settled in Crimea and in some other areas. We are working on this. We are working on this in order to find for them the necessary care. So all this blown up case, which is saying about forceful deportation and all of that, it has been blown up very artificially.
Artificially by an official, extensive report from the United Nations, of which Russia is a member. This is not an NGO, that is not an organization that wishes you harm.
Security Council. Okay.
I will just repeat
Laura,
the United Nations findings. After extensive evidence taking on the ground in Ukraine, they found there were attacks on civilians.
Okay, Laura,
willful
will you
killings.
Listen to me, or you will continue to speak?
I'm asking you the question again.
Okay, I will answer to you.
Why has Russia committed such atrocities?
When a report by the United Nations, I'm not sure which report I am talking about, we convened the Security Council session on that, to which we have presented not only the report by our ambassador, but also all those involved into this issue. Mrs. Belova, who is representing the children especially, he has provided every case and he answered all questions relevant to this particular issue.
But the broader pattern of what has been going on is obvious to the world. The world saw the attack on the theatre in Mariupol. The world saw the attack on the train station in Kramatorsk, the shopping mall in Kremenchuk, the maternity ward in Mariupol. Why won't you tell the truth about the crimes that are being committed in Ukraine by your country?
The world also should see what has happened during these 9 years of shooting. Jeffrey Sachs yesterday has made a very good comment. He has said that shooting has started not in February 2022, shooting has started in 2014. with Maidan, that has been supported by UK, US, Germany, France, which has brought the anti-Russian government into this. And actually, since that time, shooting is going on in Donbass, when Ukrainian army has sent its troops, and when they have built up fortresses, and since that time they are shooting and killing kids, children over there, demolishing houses, and I'm afraid that's the truth. Even children has grown up from 1 year to 9 during this shooting.
Ambassador, there is some limited evidence of some crimes being committed by Ukrainian troops during this conflict, but there is nothing that compares to the evidence, widespread evidence of war crimes being committed by Russia. I will ask you one more time, why will you not tell the truth about what the world can see?
This is easy, actually. We do documentation of every crime, what is happening. We're documenting every crime, what is happening
by
in
Russian
Donbass.
Troops?
By Ukrainian troops in Donbass.
What about your own troops' behavior?
What do you want from me? No.
I'm asking you a question about what Russian troops are doing on the ground. What's the purpose of your question? My question is, why won't you tell the truth about what the world can see, what the United Nations has documented? War crimes being carried out by Russian troops in Ukraine.
United Nations cannot document anything because Secretariat is not empowered to make any investigation. This is Article 100 from the United Nations Charter. He has no right to investigate anything without a task being done by Security Council.
I'd like to ask you about how Russia is handling criticism of what is going on at home. Now, the UK government has condemned the politically motivated conviction of Vladimir Kara-Murza in a Moscow court. Now, we have spoken to his wife, Yevgenia, and she has a question for you. I'd like to play it to you, if you would be so kind as to listen to it. I'll just press play.
Ambassador Kelin, I have a question for you as a representative of the Russian state. Why does a government that claims to have their overwhelming support of the population need to use repression and prison terms of up to 15 years against anyone who opposes the official narrative?
Vladimir Kara-Murza, he is in possession of two citizenship. One is Russian and one is British. He has been treated by the Russian court as the Russian citizen, and his British citizenship is not included. Personally, I can say that he has done everything to be actually deserved what he has deserved now, because what he has really been speaking about. He could stay here in Britain without returning, but he decided to return.
But he is a journalist and distinguished human rights activist, as are other people.
He used to be probably a journalist and distinguished human rights activist, but he is. It is not my judgment. It is judgment by the court. Yes, if you are interested in what is being said in Russia about events, what is going on, just turn on the television. You will see at every political show talk, it's totally different opinions about what is going on and about what is...
But there is no free press in Russia.
I haven't seen any of the speaker.
Other journalists have been imprisoned.
I haven't seen any of the speaker during that has been arrested or treated differently during this political or after political shows.
What about Evan Gershkovich from the Wall Street Journal? What about the opposition politician Alexander Navalny? What is it about President Putin that rather than confronting his critics, he throws them in jail?
What is it, Navalny? The case of Navalny has been finished long before February 2022. He has nothing to do with that. What else?
But what is it about President Putin that when there is criticism, people are arrested or thrown in jail?
Who
a Wall Street Journal journalist put in jail for doing his job.
Who is that? No, he was arrested because he was a spy, very easily. And it happens
completely denied by his newspaper, his employers and himself.
That can be done. But if you will talk to your colleague journalists who are more experienced, they will tell you that it happens very often.
What is the end game for Russia here? Do you want peace?
We want peace, but on certain conditions, of course. For us, two things are important: that there will be no threat from Ukraine to Russia. This is one thing, and which
there was no threat to Russia from Ukraine at the beginning of all of this.
You would like to return to our beginning of the conversation?
No, I'm just reminding our viewers.
Then just let me continue. And second, that Russians in Ukraine will be treated like all other nations in the world, like French people are being treated in Belgium, or like Italians and Germans being treated in Switzerland, not differently. The only thing we cannot tolerate, this is discrimination, because it's a grave violation of the Human Rights Declaration of all documentation. So what has happened in Ukraine during all these years, it was extreme nationalism, extreme, absolutely, in its ugliest form, because Russian language has been prohibited, education in Russian language has been prohibited, Russians have been squeezed out of social life, and finally, President Zelensky has shown that Russians go back to Russia. And it was quite a big deal of the population of Ukraine. This is no way. The modern countries in Europe does not live this way, in this way.
Again, you were repeating those claims for which there is no evidence. But I wonder, you say this conflict would end when you are convinced that those conditions had been met. What would convince you to say, okay, this is the moment when we can have peace, we can bring this suffering to an end? What would it be?
What it will be?
What would convince you to bring this to an end?
What will convince? Okay, when the purposes of the special military operation will be reached, of course, the current military purpose is to liberate from the occupation Donbass, and we are moving this direction by taking Bakhmut, and our troops are steadily moving to liberate Donbass and areas which we are protecting right now.
For how long would you be willing to fight on?
That depends. That depends, because Ukraine, but if it's a big idealistic mistake to think that Ukraine may prevail, which stand in your political slogans, and it is. Even Zelensky is confirming that Russia is 16 times bigger than Ukraine. We have enormous resources, and we hasn't just started yet to act very seriously. And
you
Ukraine is living at the moment.
Seriously. So this could get a lot worse?
I don't think so. That it is. We are just defending now the lands which are under control, and we are assisting Russian people over there. We are rebuilding Donbass. We are rebuilding Mariupol totally, because it has been destroyed by efforts of Ukrainian army when it was retreating.
Your troops.
Mainly by it was during the of course battles, but mainly Ukrainian army has done quite a lot to make explosion of the civil houses, as well as Bakhmut right now. So we are doing this.
You say though it hasn't even got serious yet. Could this go on then for 5 years, 10 years?
That depends on the efforts in escalation of war that is being undertaken by NATO countries, especially by the UK, who is leading all coalitions, tank coalition, aircraft coalition, and all that stuff, and continue to escalate. Sooner or later, of course, this escalation may got a new dimension, which we do not need and we do not want.
What do you mean by that?
We can make peace tomorrow.
Tactical
we can
weapons?
make peace tomorrow if Ukrainian side will be prepared to negotiate. But for the moment, there is no preconditions for that, I'm afraid, because President of Ukraine has prohibited any negotiations at all. As I understand, the Chinese representative who was yesterday or some days before in Kiev, he didn't bring any constructive answer on the part of Ukrainian leaders. He was today in Moscow, but I do not know the result. But actually, the simple freezing the conflict of what is now being in the air, I don't believe that it's a good idea, because it will not make a platform for stable and long-term peace in Europe.
You said there a new dimension that no one wants. Do you mean the possibility of using a tactical nuclear weapon?
No, I haven't said that, no.
What do you mean then by a new dimension?
New dimension, it is continuing escalation of on the part of Ukraine, because it is now a long-range missiles that has been provided by United Kingdom. It is an escalation. Tanks provided, aircrafts provided. We're not afraid of aircrafts. In fact, we have downed by now 430 Ukrainian aircrafts, and provision of new, it is only will add to these numbers.
Would you rule out then, are you ruling out today using a nuclear tactical weapon?
No, well, I have said many times also during the television debates in it that there are, in accordance with the Russian doctrine, there are only two cases when we can use a nuclear tactical weapon. If a large-scale nuclear assault against my country will be done, or with conventional weapons, it will be endangered. The existence of the Russia will be endangered. Then we may use, and this is not the type of a conflict which. What is worrying mostly me? It is a continuing escalation on the part of as I have said, of NATO. So provision of fighters. Okay, but what else can be done since all kinds of weapons has been already in use there?
Just finally, Ambassador, it's remarkable speaking to you this afternoon that you are happy to repeat claims that have been disproven. You are happy to try to deflect questions. You are happy to mislead our audience about the truth. Maybe you're even lying to yourself about what is really going on. I just wonder, Russia has unleashed a
Laura,
terrible conflict that is hurting its own people as well as Ukrainians.
I think I have told you, if you will try to offend me, once again, we will just stop this interview.
I'm not trying to offend you. I have a final question. What has happened in Ukraine for Russians and for Ukrainians has been terrible. How long is it before you look for a way out?
You're trying to tell me that I am misleading. I'm not misleading you. I'm just telling you our side of the story, which is never appearing in your newspapers, but it is appearing in other media. And if you are really, and should be an unbiased journalist, this is in your CV and this job description, as I say, then you should learn both sides of the story.
This is not about both sides of the story. This is about
the
truth.
Story always.
And I want you to give us your final answer. How long before you stop denying the reality of what is going on and look for a way out so that peace can come?
Okay, you can stop it tomorrow if you will stop, as Minister of Defense of Germany has said the day before yesterday, I guess, in the Parliament, that if we will stop supplying weapons to Ukraine, it will be stopped the day after tomorrow. That's it.
Is it funny?
That is funny, yes, of course. It's not very funny, but he just said the truth. If supplies of weapons will be stopped, then it will all be finished the day after tomorrow. Please, stop it. Okay, good.
People in Ukraine might rather wish that Russia would stop it.
If people in Ukraine will stop to support nationalists, if they will decide finally to change the course which their nationalistic government has taken, and if they will realize that the best way is to live in peace with the neighbors and not just to go into NATO, and with understanding that there are other countries around, then this understanding should prevail. It is not important what kind of victory it will be, but an understanding that we are living together on one piece of land, and we should take care of each other, and we should also take into account interests of each other, and not the way Washington is living right now, either my way or no way.
Do you have any regrets?
Of what?
About what's happened in Ukraine?
No, I have a regret that UK has taken this hard position. We have had a very long story of relationship with the United Kingdom, and suddenly London decided to blow up all this architecture of relationship, political, economical, cultural, especially humanitarian, and all the rest of it. And our relationship, they are dated, well, 450 years. There were ties between people, ties between our royal houses, quite a lot, and trying to ruin it in one day because of the idealistic idea. This is not the war between good and bad, white and black. We have a problem with Ukraine at the moment, Ukrainian government, I will say, not with Ukraine, but with Ukrainian government. And we need to resolve this problem. This is what we are trying to do.
Ambassador Kelin, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Good.